working.
Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here. Welcome to my review for Power Rangers Lightning Collection Pirantishead from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the latest addition to the Monster of the Week line in this series. Let's go ahead and get started going over the accessories. On him, he has the two hands that are default, which is kind of a holding weapon hand, and then a fist, which in this pose makes him look like he's going, "Why, I oughta." Then you got two kind of opened attacking hands here. Standard lightning effect part here. And then his weapon here, which look like kind of these weird fish nunchucks, which he also uses in the show to play kind of like a dragon dagger type of deal, like, you know, putting it up to his mouth. That sounded. Anyway, and honestly, like, this isn't going to be a huge deal breaker for me, but it does look a little bit weirdly cheap. If you look at it in the show, it's not like there's a whole lot of details on it. There is a little bit more detail to make it look more like a fish, whereas these just honestly look like kind of bath toys. It feels like if you squeak them or squeeze them, they're going to squeak. And the only other detail I noticed is like on the back of the box, I feel it shows the chain seeming a little bit more metallic looking, whereas this looks a little cheaper. For me, it's not a deal breaker. It's not like it's the greatest looking weapon in the first place. As far as the figure itself, I think the biggest selling point of it is I think that they did a really good job on the overall sculpting details. I've said in past reviews that Monsters of the Week aren't exactly my #1 priority when it comes to collecting or lightning collecting, so I wasn't super excited about them, but I've been really impressed with the sculpting and the molding of them. I think in general, usually the proportions are all very accurate, and they have lots of nice, like, really intricate details that make it feel like you're getting a miniaturized version of the suit, which I'm just really impressed with, and they look really cool from that regard, and I really do like that, and I think that it's kind of extra, like, neat for me because I wasn't that excited for them, but then they wind up impressing me with the sort of sculpting details, and they're obviously some of the most detailed sculpt-wise compared to, like, regular Ranger figures and stuff like that, so I really do appreciate that. And I think overall, just from a look standpoint, you know, like I said, proportions and sculpting look really good. I don't feel that he feels like too skinny or too fat or anything. I think they did a pretty good job on that overall. I think the color is a little bit off at times. It depends on what picture you're looking at. You know, if you look at various pictures from the show, it kind of depends, just like with Ranger Suit. But I think the color is accurate enough for me, but it can be a little bit off. I'm sure there's little details here and there missing that some people will notice, but for me, there's nothing deal-breaking to notice about the details or anything like that. Honestly, my main complaint comes with it, with just how it feels. It definitely feels the cheapest. Up until now, I think my least favorite was Pudgy Pig. Like, I thought it was a decent figure, but it felt a little bit cheap and lopsided. And this is the only one for me that it really has felt cheaper in terms of, like, the articulation and stuff. Like, his waist piece here is really loose and floppy, and even the other joints on here are very, very loose for me. And because he's kind of more of a heavy figure, you know, it makes it feel even worse because there's a lot more pressure on certain areas. So the other ones have felt more solid in the past with more tight articulation, whereas this one just feels a little bit looser and cheaper with the articulation, which just kind of all around makes it feel like the weakest of the bunch for me. You do have your kind of standard articulation though. You have your nice ball and hinge joint here. All around range of motion, you kind of have to finagle yourself around the fins there. Swiveling here, elbow joint here, swiveling at the fist, obviously. Nice ball joint here at the leg. You got your knee joint right here. A little bit of a hinge ball joint at the foot right here. As you can see, there is chest and waist articulation with the hinge there, which does kind of stick out, but that's kind of inevitable. And then a ball joint up here as well. Something else that's interesting and weird of note with the articulation is, like, the mouth obviously can move up and down, so you can kind of have him pose with the open mouth or screaming or whatever, but it's also on its own little joint here, so it can kind of move its jaw back and forth, which it looks like you're kind of breaking his jaw, but it's kind of strange. It adds a little bit of personality to it, which I kind of like, because you can kind of have him doing this, like, side mouth bit, which it's kind of neat, but also just, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Then the tail right here can move around on this little ball joint. It's not like it gives it, I mean, it's kind of nice to do it, but it's not really a whole lot of variety, like, oh my god, there's this and this. And then this piece here is separate when you get it. I kind of left it loose a little bit there, so that it kind of saves space in the packaging, but you just snap it in here. You have to apply a little more force to get it all the way in, but it's a lot easier for me than the tip-top head for Pudgy Pig there. But that's really my only main complaint about him, is that overall he just feels a little bit looser and cheaper, and it sucks to have the sort of loose feeling joints, especially on a heavier figure. That can sometimes be a bit of a problem. But overall, you know, he's my least favorite of the monsters personally. You know, I just, for the figure itself, just in terms of how it feels a little bit looser, and the design itself isn't exactly one of my favorite monsters or anything. But I'll say that If you're really into the monsters and you've been liking what you've been getting so far with them, then I can probably recommend picking this up. For everybody else, I wouldn't say it's an absolute must-have. Thus far, kind of my blanket recommendation when it comes to the monsters figures, as far as picking them up, is just wait for a sale, because pretty much most of them have gone on a decent sale. So even if you're kind of interested in it, even though I think it's a weaker of the bunch, then it's probably going to go on sale, and then I can recommend it if you're interested in it. Because it's the weaker of the bunch right now, I can't really recommend it as a must-have. I think there's better picks, but if you really have your heart set on the monsters, you care about the loose feeling or not that you might get from the joints, I would wait for a sale, because inevitably it will likely go on sale. But that's about it for this one though, guys. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.